Good evening. My story begins, it's really a story of a problem that began when I was working the beer wagon. And it's more of a husband and idiot story than hero and villain story. But the problem is that I was going to have to tell my wife that I had made a mistake again. I've been married to the same woman for 55 years. We met in the first grade. And she's really quite remarkable. And she's funny and she's intelligent and she's a good cook and she knows how to keep baseball scores and she's pretty. So as you might expect, I've lived in terror for most of my life and all of my marriage that she's going to realize at some point that she married an imbecile and she's going to ask me to leave. And which causes me to spend an awful lot of time trying to cover up my mistakes, which is not very easy because you already made the mistake, but sometimes you don't know it's a mistake and it all gets incredibly circular and confusing and exhausting. And but anyway, even, you know that you're going to have to do something. Dr. Phil and the marriage counselors tell us we're supposed to be, vulnerable and sensitive and sharing. That's hogwash. You can't do that if you're covering up everything you did wrong. So anyway, but even a dope knows at some point he's going to have to tell his wife that he made a mistake. And so that's what I knew, that I was going to have to tell Barbara that I had done something wrong again. And the problem had begun when I was working the beer wagon at the St. Augustine's Apple Fest up in Peru. And it looked like an easy job at first, but then the day was like 45 degrees. It was raining. It was windy. It was dreadful. And for 5 hours, I stood out there serving beer to almost nobody because nobody was hanging out. It was just a long, ugly, wet day. And at this time in my life, I had a lot of orthopedic problems, and I was running about 70 miles a week anyway, even though my knees hurt a lot, and I was climbing mountains. But in order to solve that problem, I was taking ibuprofen quite a bit, and I was taking a lot in the morning and a lot at night, and I would get big bottles at Sam's Club, and that would allow me to sort of manage the pain. And so that's what I did. At the same time, we had a wonderful Labrador retriever named Juice, and she was one of the great swimmers of all time. You take a tennis ball and wing it out into Lake Champlain. Juice would have it back at your feet in moments. Didn't matter how rough, how cold it was. It would be dropped at your feet, 2 or 3 of them at the same time. She was remarkable, just a wonderful, wonderful dog. She also had some difficulties. She was a bit arthritic, and sometimes I had to lift her into the truck when I was taking her to Osable Point. And for her, the veterinarian had recommended and prescribed Rimadyl as an anti-inflammatory, and so that's what we gave her. Anyway, when I came back from that day working the beer wagon, I knew that I was already in pain and I was only going to get worse, so I grabbed some pills and swallowed them. And as I was putting the pill bottle back into the cupboard, I said, uh-oh. And you might think to yourself, how could he be so stupid? Well, that's not a question we stupid people ask ourselves. We don't, half the time we don't know that we've been stupid. We just do what we do. You remember when in The Wizard of Oz when they asked the Tin Man, why don't you have a brain? How? Of course he says, I don't know. How could he know? He has no brain. And that's what it's like. And so anyway, I watched and I said to myself, uh-huh. And then I began to think, this could be complicated. Mostly what I was worried about side effects. because I knew I had taken Juice's Rimadyl, and I didn't know what the side effects were. And I wasn't really worried that I'd start fetching tennis balls or bringing dead ducks to hunters. But you know, when you're watching TV and they have these wonderful medications that are going to solve every problem that you've ever had, and you know, they got this pill that'll take care of your leukemia, and then they go through and it begins to go really fast, and they start telling you all of the side effects, and you can't keep up, and there's 73 of them. And then one of them you heard was pubic hair is going to grow on your face. And you're going to have an oily discharge. They don't say from where, they just say an oily discharge. So anyway, that sort of made me nervous. And that's why, in the morning, I said to Barbara, it's about the Rimadyl. And I wanted her to pay attention to me over the next couple of days, because if anything odd came up, I wanted her to call the veterinarian. She, of course, was what Barbara is, patient, perplexed, bewildered that she had given her life over to this person. But she kept her eye on me for the next couple of days, and it was really good. Here's something. The pills worked. The pain was gone. I ran 2 half marathons. I caught a loon at Taylor Pond. And Barbara didn't consider me a hero, but she at least let me stay. Thank you.